Hey friends, this is Marilyn from tarotclarity.com, and today I thought I would do a really brief video because I was reminded of something that I should have done a video on and I never did. How many times have any of you purchased a deck to supplement your collection or to find, to buy a vintage deck that you can't get elsewhere because it's out of print, and then you get it and then it smells really bad, either because of cigarette smoke or mildew or something like that? Well, that's happened to me one time. I wanted to buy the same year deck that I had purchased for myself. The very first tarot deck I ever owned was like 1970 publication. And although I could get this deck new, recently printed because it's still in publication, I wanted to get the same year that I had originally bought because I wanted to buy it for my daughter. So I found it online. And that particular year, 1970, is getting a little difficult because it's, past 50 years already, right? It's like a 54-year-old deck. So finding them in good condition is getting a little hard. But I wanted very much for her to have the same year deck that I had. So I get it, and it stinks really bad of mildew. So there was no way I could give it to her or anybody, and I wouldn't even use it for myself because it smelled really bad, and I considered throwing it away. I was just like, oh gosh. But I did a little research, and I read online that there are ways to remedy bad odors. So in the meanwhile, I just did another search, and I found another deck for her with the same year and publication of my original deck. So she ended up getting a deck, but I kept this one and I put this one aside. And one of the solutions that folks say works was to put the cards in baking soda. So what I did, I think it recommended that you put it in a plastic bag, but what I did was I put it in a paper bag because I really wanted it to breathe, especially if there was mildew. And it did appear as though the box had some mildew. So I filled two bags. I filled two paper bags. I filled one and put the box and lid in because I wasn't sure if this was the source of the stink, because the box seemed to have started to go through a process of stinky, and then it stunk up the whole deck. So I put the box in its own bag of baking soda, and then I put the cards themselves in their own separate bag, brown paper bag with baking soda, and I saturated both. I probably used a whole box of baking soda between the two bags, and I put them aside. I forgot all about them. I didn't even remember I did it. And when I was moving about a year and a half ago, I came across these bags, and when I opened it up, I was like, oh my God, I forgot all about that. So when I opened the bag to do a sniff test, there was no smell at all. There was no residual mildew smell on either the cards themselves or the box. Now, the problem, however, was that there was a lot of baking soda. It was going to take a lot to get rid of the baking soda. So I'll demonstrate how I got rid of the baking soda. Oh, my grandbaby is sleeping in the other room. That's why I have the monitor. So what I did was I repeatedly would bang the cards on the table. And there's like trace amounts even still, but not so bad. Some of that might be dust from my table. But, and then I just repeatedly, shuffled to get stuff flying through the air. I also used a fine artist brush, like really fine, fine-haired brush, and I just would go through each card, front and back, probably a dozen times, each front and back, and to just remove. And there was a lot of mess. I'm not going to lie. There was a lot of residual stuff, but it all eventually came off well enough that I can use this deck, and I just put it back in my collection. That's just a duplicate of my original deck, and any rate, I just thought I'd pass that information along. See, I have notes with my decks to show, I try to tell stories for each of my decks. So this particular deck has a story, like I just told you, so I put that in there. It's not my original deck, but it's this, I think it's the same year of publication. This one, unfortunately, it didn't come with the little white booklet. It didn't come with that. It came with the 2 blank cards. And you can see, I've noticed that different publications have different cuts, different corner cuts. And so this one has the same corner cut as my original deck. And it was purchased as a 1970 deck. And it seems in every way identical to my original deck. But I know that there are other year publications where the corner cut is different. So there's just like some clues about, and I have every reason to believe this is from 1970. The box is identical to my 1970 deck, but does have the little white book in it. And as I said, the corner cuts are exactly the same. But I know that some later publications, the corner cuts are a little different. At any rate, I just thought I'd pass this information along. Some of you may be in possession of a really smelly deck. Either it smells like cigarette smoke or it smells like mildew. And if you're willing to put it in a paper bag of baking soda and let it sit for 6 months to a year, I'm not really sure how long it took because I forgot all about it. And I didn't even realize I had it until maybe 2 or 3 years later. I forgot all about it. But it definitely got rid of the smell. Anyway, until next time, friends, peace, stay well, be kind, and do no harm.